Charisma Quotient. I'm your host, Kim Seltzer, a dating and makeover expert, where I will help you build confidence, make connections, and find love from the outside in. I'm back doing another episode of Where Are They Now? And for those of you who hadn't heard the first episodes of these series, I'm going to recap because, as you know, I coach a lot of people. And of course, you have heard me coaching people live on this podcast with my Coaching with Kimmy episodes. But I also have a ton of clients who I send off into the world after coaching with them. And it's so amazing and rewarding when I hear countless success stories and read thousands of emails and texts of previous clients updating me on how their life has improved and often how they found love. So I do these Where Are They Now episodes to inspire and motivate you by hearing what happens to people after I work with them. And whether that is on the podcast or working with them over time as clients, I hope you listen to these and get inspired by people's successes and know that success can happen to you too. And it all starts with a call. So today I am bringing on a gorgeous woman, Sandra, who, she decided to coach with me after her friend referred me to her, and who, I helped her friend actually years ago. So it was, definitely a spider web of women that to me that always makes it more special. And she had been in therapy and she had done a lot of online dating. I think it was over 10 years at this point when I talked to her, and she still wasn't able to meet the right men for her. And she wanted help meeting people IRL in real life. This is what a lot of you are complaining about and that I've been helping people with. She also wanted to increase her dating confidence and find a healthy relationship that lasted. And when we first met, she wasn't even going on dates. And if she did, they would never last. And she recognized that she was a little too picky, a little closed-minded. She lacked also emotional connections, and it was hard for her to express herself. And she would be in her head a lot. And because of that, she would lose opportunities to really get to know potential partners because she was so fearful of picking the wrong guy and not giving people chances. So Sandra was left feeling alone, not having fun, and feeling completely stuck. And she experienced a lot of anxiety, and in ways she felt invisible, had little to none like social life, and certainly had no idea how to flirt or embrace her femininity. I think she had it in her all along, and it wasn't until I saw her and really brought it out of her, but it definitely was dormant, at least when we first began together. And as we worked together, the main goal was to get out in the real world and connect with people naturally, to gain her social and sexy confidence and understand how her own femininity really was her power, and most of all, to learn how to receive. And we worked on being more playful and letting go of the outcome so that she could meet more men and build her social life. Sandra learned to lead with more emotional connections and really, just understanding what she wanted versus what a man wanted. And through a lot of different dating scenarios and helping her get out of her head, she met an amazing man. And guess where? Dun dun dun, in the wild. And it was such a meet cute moment. But I'm going to let her tell the story. Welcome, Sandra. Are you there?
Hi, Kimmy.
Hi. Do you remember that woman?
Great to hear your voice again.
I know, you too. It was weird. I was telling you off air, just kind of like reading our notes, when we first had our call together. And when I got that text from you not too long ago that you're like, oh, remember that guy that I met at the bar? I'm still with him. I mean, it's such a great story. But I mean, before we get into that, I would love to have you kind of recap. I mean, I don't know if you even remember that woman back then when we first had our call, what life was like what prompted you to even, get a hold of me and what you were struggling with.
Yeah, I it has been a while now. It's been a few years actually that I've been feeling this way. I was working from home like a
Hmm.
lot of people. And I recently moved to a new place. So I didn't know a lot of people here. The only time I ever left my house was to go to the gym or the grocery store. It was just hard to meet new people and make new friends and that sort of thing. So I was feeling pretty isolated. And it felt like online was my only opportunity
Hmm.
to meet people. And as you mentioned, I've been on online for more than a decade. Um, and it was always very hit and miss. I had, mixed experiences. Um, but I was rather picky. And, sometimes it's sort of the phone call, sometimes I meet them in person. 9 times out of 10, nothing came out of it.
Hmm.
So I was doing this. I felt like that was my only option, and it wasn't very successful. So I felt like I needed to do something different.
Hmm.
And I had a feeling that it was the way I was making decisions. I always just used to say, like, my friends should pick guys for me because they see something I don't, or I filter too much. Um, so I felt like some of the issues I had was probably inside of me. So the idea of a dating coach, which is not a matchmaker, but a dating coach to help me my process sounded like exactly what I needed.
Mm. Oh, and I was so happy that you did decide to contact me. I also and I don't know if you remember this because we were talking about some of the challenges you were having. I do remember you saying that you had trouble like trusting yourself too and like choosing the wrong guy. Like what was happening with the guys that you were dating?
Well, I would say that, especially online, I would look at things like, oh, okay, my first thing, of course, are they attractive? That's what online's good for.
Hmm.
But I would like, well, maybe they're too attractive oh, well, they didn't write anything in their summary. And I would just like pick. Or I would over rotate and be like, you should just give him a chance. I know he's not that attractive, or you don't find him that attractive, and this doesn't look, I was just trying to control it a lot.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
then when I would be chatting with some guy, I would try really hard, but I would eventually want to like, no, so what do you do? And where do you live? And like, where did you grow up? Like, I wanted information. And I think
Yes.
because I am so analytical, I
Hmm.
want information. And I think I'm not in that place of definitely not a flirty place. I,
Right.
I'm in a data gathering as a scientist kind of approach
Right.
to this. So I think that comes naturally to me. And I just was doing it in my dating life and it wasn't getting me very far.
Yes, I'm so glad you mentioned that because you were the quintessential list lady, as I call it, my archetype. And you were vetting these guys so hard that it became like a Q&A session, an interrogation, and it was like you'd find one thing and then you'd be on to the next. And yeah, there was nothing fun or playful or definitely not flirty about it. And you remember like even just like with flirting, I remember you saying that you didn't want to lead men on. You want to talk about that a little, like why that part was hard?
I think when I hear the word flirting, I think of something really like overt or something very like sexual. And I
Hmm.
think it's the word that kind of got me a little, bothered because I felt like, well, what if I don't like this guy? And I think the word that you and I talked about later on was more playfulness.
Yes.
So like you can be very playful with people and that's like less sexual to me. I felt like flirting would be like, oh, well, he's going to think I want to sleep with him and I don't want to give him that message. But
Hmm.
once I started thinking just being playful, which I am naturally playful with my friends, um, that kind of changed my mindset a little bit. That it's not this, I'm all in on this guy. Um, I think that helped a lot to just kind of think, okay, how do you be yourself, your natural self with your friends with this stranger sitting next to you?
Yes. No, I feel like that was like almost like the key to your queendom, because when I met you, and as you listening can hear, you're very social and playful, like even just the way that you talk, the way that you interact, like you said, probably with your friends, but that part of you, you were like shutting down when it came to men, and you became in like your business mode. And I think that the key to attraction and building chemistry has to do with that openness, that playfulness, and even so much so it like there was like the stiffness in your body language too. Remember that?
Yeah, I think there's something about um I know how to do this for work. Like
Mm-hmm.
I know how to go into an event. I'm like, okay, I have a job to do. I'm gonna go do it. And I know, I have a job title and people have job titles. I know how to introduce myself and tell them what I do. Like I know the process. I have a script for it and I'm comfortable at work. And I'm very much in my head and it's usually about topics about work, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So outside of that, I didn't know how to just make conversation for conversation's sake.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if I'm like overly intentional, like if I'm like, hey, I want to talk to this guy. Okay, what do I talk about? Then I get flustered and like, oh, you do you like him? Do you not like him? And oh, and I started just overthinking, period. That's what it
Yes.
came down to. Yeah.
Yes. Which goes against the definition of really what flirting is all about. Because, again, in the dictionary, it's to behave as though you're attracted to someone without the serious intention of an outcome. And that was super hard for you as an achiever, as a professional, and really too what we're talking about, and I remember, and I said this in the intro, was embracing your femininity, because you've been in such a masculine energy with your job and doing things yourself, that being able to receive even just the moment of meeting a guy, or the way people are with you, like I think that was huge too. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, that was huge. Again, kind of looking at my work world, like I'm a leader. I lead.
Yes.
Um, I set direction, I follow up, you know, I'm goal oriented. So, for example, online, we'd be chatting about something, and I'm like, okay, I just want to talk to this guy because I want to figure out whether or not we've got any chemistry or anything in common. So I want to like cut to the chase and like let's get offline and go on to, let's have a phone call. And I would drive that because that's what I wanted.
You were setting up a business meeting. I remember that. I
Exactly.
was like, what are
Exactly.
you
And
doing? Yeah.
you're like, no, 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 no. Let him figure that out. Like I said, but I don't want to waste my time.
Yeah.
And I'm like tired of texting back and forth. It's kind of work. You're like, no, 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 just go with it. Just go with it. So that's a good example of how I was leading.
Yes. Oh my God. And in so many ways, like, the way that your energy was, that you're fast paced, not giving things chances, like, let's get with the program kind of thing, and I think that the whole theme with you is that you had such a desire to find that connection, that theme came up of not wasting time a lot. I remember that. And I remember saying to you, in efforts of you not wanting to waste time, look how much time you've wasted.
Yeah.
And I think that was so, like, that slowing down, the femininity piece, the leaning back. I mean, I really think all led up to that moment where you met your guy. I mean, obviously it was a journey and we'll hear about that. But yeah, I'm so happy that you shared that, because, a lot of people listening so relate, especially if you're a professional, woman. I mean, you have to be in that energy. And I think that, you know, knowing that it's okay to just be in the moment, when you allow things like that to happen, you're actually speeding up time. That's the irony of it all, because you're giving things chances and you're creating more opportunities.
Yeah, it's different because I find it as, letting it unfold.
Yeah.
And even in my current relationship, and we've had some ups and downs, and like I would get to a point, I'm like, oh, I don't think this is going to work out. Like, oh, no, 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 yeah, I think this is a deal breaker. And then I just take a moment, like, let's see how this works out. Like things can change. I would rush to judgment very quickly.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And like, oh, well, this is super important. That's never going to work out. Okay, we're done. I was very quick. And
Hmm.
it's emotions are different. I think, and it's part of my learning on both sides, like how you feel and how things change. And you feel one way in one moment, and it can feel different in another moment. And that has been hard for my analytical, goal-oriented, linear brain to accept. But I think it's very natural, and there are some people who can do it better than I can. But that has been a big learning for me.
Oh my gosh, I'm really, I love what you said, like letting things unfold. It's a good way of framing it. And when you allow that to happen, you also allow yourself to feel. That's where the emotions come in. And when you do that, there's more of an emotional intimacy that forms in an interaction. And whether that's like from the minute you say hello all the way to a relationship. And when you are in your left brain, that's the analytical part, you're very left brain heavy. It's just like training your right brain to say, hey, no, I'm just as important too. Don't leave me out. And that's when I think the magic happens, for you, which obviously did. But I don't know if you remember, like, what were some of the highlights or things that we did together that you learned that really kind of moved the needle for you?
I would say the biggest one is what you you were great in giving me very specific instructions because I needed it. Um, when we were together at that bar and you just like you have a plan, you're like, okay, you want to sit close to the corner of the bar because you get to meet more people and very prescriptive, which was great. But I think the thing that really turned my head was there was a guy next to me. You're like, okay, I want you to start a conversation with him. And you can ask, just be curious, just kind of be curious, like ask him a question, maybe about his drink or something. But you said within the first 30 seconds, I want you to say something personal about yourself.
Hmm.
I'm like, what? And I could easily like make conversation with the guy next to me about his drink, what kind of vodka is it? Where's it
Of
from?
course. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but that's how I normally am. That's me being in my head. We could talk about our favorite vodkas around the world and the consistency. Like it's just me theorizing again, me being analytical.
Hmm.
When you said say something personal, first of all, I didn't know what you meant. and And you were saying it could be anything. It could be like, oh, this one time I went to Iceland and I had this, they have vodka there and we had such a great day. I was there for a 40th birthday party and we had rented this house and we went hiking every day. And my best friends from high school were there and we haven't seen each other in ages. And we had just such a great time. I love those people. So you're just like instead of just talking about vodka or Iceland
Uh-huh.
as a country, like, oh, somebody's 40th birthday party. Okay, you've got some friends and you feel really close to them. And it didn't have to be like, I don't know, like my deepest, darkest secrets, but it was just something personal about myself, a personal story. And I remember just like, oh, this changes the conversation completely.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
changes me. And then you said, and in the next 60 seconds, I want you to ask him something personal about himself.
Hmm.
And that I honestly, it was like a paradigm shift because I'm so used to talking about topics. I can talk about politics, I can talk about business, I can talk about anything with you.
Mm.
But that connection is what was missing.
Yeah.
That personal connection. And, and I think sometimes I worry about people taking me seriously. So I tend to be kind of serious in the beginning. And just that people really respond to personal requests or like a personable person.
Hmm.
And it's just not how I was wired, but it is and I do that still to this day, just with a lot of people, um, just because it just changes the energy.
Hmm. Yes. Oh my God. And I do remember that too, like when we were together. And I love that you saw that that was like a huge shift for you because it relates to a lot of the challenges that you are having, and, when you also, when you're kind of like more in that personal conversation, you're really able to be more present and stay with somebody. And that, in essence, kind of slows things down to give people opportunity and chances to get to know one another. When you're so busy rattling off facts, you walk away with, like, who was that person? Like, like
Yeah.
you could have a conversation like that with a million people, and it would not have any kind of attraction factor whatsoever, because you could have that with like an AI robot, to be honest, and nowadays you got to be really careful because it could be an AI person sitting
Right.
next to you. But the point is that's what makes the difference between really also being in your feminine and allowing that energy to flow with you to get more personal. So yeah, I love that. I love that. What were there other things that also jumped out that you like, or maybe like skills that you gained?
Yeah, I think when you looked at my online profile
Oh yes.
and you read through my messages and you gave me feedback like, okay, don't lead. Okay, don't like just oh, I think someone compliment I said you're beautiful. And then I said, so where'd you grow up? I just completely changed the subject. And you were saying to me, like, you know, accept that, respond, like send an emoji, like a little blushing emoji or something to show like that you received that. Like, oh wow,
Uh-huh.
I'm beautiful. And um, and I actually did that once with a guy, and I was asking him about his name. He had
Uh-huh.
like shows like JT or something. And I said, "Oh, is that short for something?" And he tells me, and goes, "But my friends call me my family calls me JT." I'm like, "Oh, that's so cute." And he like sent me like a little heart back. I'm like,
Aw.
"Oh, this is what Kimmy's talking about."
Yes. A plus.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I responded emotionally, right? I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
how cute. What a cute nickname." And so he responded the same. And so I'm like, oh, this works.
It totally, and it's so easy. And a lot of times people think, and I think maybe even you did before we worked together, it's like, oh well, this is so frivolous. This is a waste of time. This is goofy. Like, let's just,
Yeah.
get on with it. Let's just like, where are you? What time do you want to meet? Like more just
Mhm.
logistical stuff. And again, there's just nothing sexy about it. Like you can do that with a business partner all day long, but that's not going to create attraction. And so yeah, I do. That's awesome
I think
example.
that was my biggest learning is that I really have to step out of my day to day and like,
Yeah.
okay, you need different energy now. And I think like getting dressed up
Mhm.
and I love like putting on an outfit, like, okay, I look good, I feel good. And then, you have that confidence out there. Um, Yeah, I mean, I have friends who are more natural at this, like very playful, and they meet a ton of people, men, women, like they meet people on the bus, they meet people like at
Mhm.
the grocery store,
Yep.
kind of everywhere. So it definitely works if you can. But just it's getting yourself in that. You got to get into a certain vibe, I think.
Well, not only that, it's a skill. And if you never learned it or you didn't grow up with it, how are you supposed to know? Like, remember you and I were talking about your upbringing and that, how love got expressed was more with, just being successful and, academics. And that was more heavily, in your family system. And so, dating and flirting and all this stuff is just a skill. And it's like, how else are you supposed to learn it unless you practice it and someone teaches it to you? So that's why, like, when people say, oh, just be more confident, just go out there. It's like, well, what does that even mean? But
Yeah.
breaking it down into these skills that we're talking about. And then what I loved about you, Sandra, and this is why I truly believe you were successful in landing this guy, whatever happens, is that you did the work. Like you actually practiced it. I remember getting texts from you and saying, I'm doing my homework. I'm out doing this, and that's the name of the game.
Yeah. It was funny about the homework because there was also like an accountability thing. I told all
Yeah.
my friends about this. So they would ask me, like, have you done your homework? Or we'd be out together and they're
Right.
mostly couples. They're like, don't you have some homework to do?
I love it.
And, so it was our little inside joke that I've got homework to do. Um, I didn't actually, there were times in which I felt like I was slacking on my homework, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Um, but I eventually got there.
Hmm. Well, and that's the thing. Like there are some people who might, I mean, and everyone has their own pace. And what I find is that when people just try to do this on their own, they'll try it for a little bit and then, they just keep being busy, busy being busy, as I call it. And then you forget. And it's a muscle that you have to train. It's a muscle that you have to learn and build over time. And once you build it, they become like your friends who do it all the time. And you might even feel that a little bit now where it's just a way of life. You don't think of it. It's like going to the gym. At first when you're going, I mean your muscles are sore, or they hurt, you don't really want to go. And then after a while, like you can't wait to go. You're not sore anymore and it just feels good. And so I think this was the same. Well, I'm so like I can't wait for you to share the story of your meet cute moment. So how did all these skills and things that you were working on come together when you met this guy? Like, share the story.
Yeah, so it was a Friday and I had kind of finished work early and I got my workout in early and I was like, it's only 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 3 o'clock. I'm like, what am I going to do? And I realized, Sandra, you have some work to do or some homework to do because it was a Friday night and you were very prescriptive that I need to go out Thursday, Friday nights between 5 and 7, the happy hour,
Good girl.
and but not Saturday, and go to a high-end steakhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I'm not gonna. So I got dressed, I got, dolled up, I got the outfit, the makeup, the hair. Like, okay, I'm gonna go do my homework. So I jump in the car and I'm going. There's like two different steakhouses I could potentially go to. And I'm like, well, this one's a little bit more casual. I think I'm more casually dressed. So maybe I'll just go there, whatever. So I go there and the place is packed. I walk in and I'm like, oh God, this is the part. This is the part I hate. I'm by myself. I feel very self-conscious. I feel like a loser. Everybody's here with somebody, and they all know that I'm a loser here by myself. That's my self-talk.
Right.
And I even walked up to the hostess and she's like, how can I help you? I said, oh, I just want to sit at the bar. I said, oh, I have someone meeting me. I was like, I was making it up.
Oh
No
my
one,
God, you did? You didn't
I
tell me
did
that?
because I felt I felt like a loser
Yeah.
saying I'm here by myself. I want to sit at the bar.
Yeah.
And even a girlfriend of mine said to me once, like, if I go to a bar by myself, I feel like, am I there for a hookup? I said, well, maybe
Mm.
on a Saturday night in a disco or something. I said, but this was Friday night, 5 o'clock
Right.
at a high-end steakhouse, which is why I think you were very specific about that, Kimmy.
Correct.
This is not a pickup place. So I said, oh, I'll just sit at the bar. So there was one seat left at the bar, it was on the very corner, and there was a guy sitting there on the next, but he had the back to me. So I sat down and he had his back to me the whole time, or for a long, long time. Like, okay, I guess, he's chatting with these women on the other side of him. He's chatting, chatting. I'm like, oh, it looks like he's kind of into it. Um, all right, whatever. So I order my meal and I'm sitting there thinking, you know what? If I don't talk to anyone, I showed up and I did my homework. Check. I was like totally happy that I got dressed and I went out. And I may not talk to anyone, but you're here. That's what matters. These are here. And then all of a sudden he turned around and said, hi, I'm Jonathan. I said, oh, hi. I
Mhm.
said, hi, I'm Sandra. And he goes, I'm so sorry about what's happening next to me because these women were really loud and
Mm.
a little drunk.
Mhm.
And oh, I thought, you're just chatting with your friends. He's like, oh, no, no, they're not my friends. They're really coming on strong and they're saying, kiss me. And I'm like, oh my
Oh my
gosh.
God.
And I looked at him and I said, do you need help? He's like, maybe. And I could tell he was like such a nice guy that he couldn't like turn them away. And then I said, do you need me to walk you to your car? And he's like, maybe. So we just kept on chatting. And the women, funny, they actually got thrown out because they were so loud at this high-end steakhouse. And we just chatted and, we had a nice talk. And I think because he opened up so personally with me so early on, it was easy for me to be personal
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
because he was vulnerable. He's like, I need help.
That is adorable. I
I'm like,
love
let me help. And then I was emotional, like, oh my gosh, let me help you.
it.
Um, we finished and we're about to leave. And I said, would you like me to walk you to your car? He's like, no, he just is fine. Why don't I walk you to your car? So I let him walk me to my car, and these women were still outside hanging around, which was kind of strange. And we were chatting about he was opening up a new business, and he's like, well, I'll let you know when my business is open. Like, can I have your number? I'll let you know. So I gave him my number. We text a little bit back and forth over the weekend, and he asked me out. So that's how it started. And when we met, he's a really lovely guy. He's not what I thought my type was.
Oh, I love that. Mm-hmm.
Um, I found him like physically attractive.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved the way I felt with him.
Mm.
He just had a good fit. He felt kind and very like giving, and but he's not what I would, thought I needed someone more intellectual. And it's funny because I was telling a dear friend of mine who knows me really well, I said, yeah, he's not very intellectual. And she looked at me, she goes, that's probably really good for you.
Uh-huh. Mm.
And, he just likes me for me.